Welcome to Friday Funday here on Cheap Comic Collector.
It's Comic Book Friday, we got the stash. Oh yeah! Pages yellow, but we're making cash. Cheap heroes flying, making moves so fast. In this funky time warp, it's a blast. Comic shops buzzing like bees in a hive. Vintage tales bringing them alive. Yeah. Collector's paradise where dreams reside. Flip through the pages, taking that ride. Comic Book Friday, swinging to the beat. Getting those deals ain't it neat? Heroes and villains all meet and greet. Dancing in the aisles, moving our feet. Found a gem from 42, Captain Bold, tales untold, worth their weight in gold. Mad scientist with a plan so cold. Now it's moved to cherish and hold. Super fans unite with the shout. Yeah, cheap comics, there's no doubt. Every hero story we tell. In this funky mission, no one leaves out. Comic Book Friday, swinging to the beat. Getting those deals, ain't it neat? Heroes and villains all meet and greet. Dancing in the aisles, moving our feet.
Hey everybody, welcome to Friday Funday. So today's the day of the week that we don't do a sale. Every other week, Monday through Thursday, we do the claim sales out of the boxes that you guys, the recorded episodes, you just claim in the comments. Saturday, Sunday, we do the auctions with $3 starts. But today, we don't do any of that. Gotta have at least one day where we just chill, man. Quit trying to pick my pocket, you know what I'm saying? But we are going to have some fun. I got some stuff here for you to show off a little bit and look at. Got a first #1 issue of Tomart's Disneyana update. And can't see it real good with the lighting because the lighting's set up for the overhead view. So we're just going to go over there, I guess. I'm glad you're here. Maybe you can tell me how to work this thing. All right. So, yeah, this is Tomart's Disneyana update #1. And I discovered these, I believe, either at Disneyland or Walt Disney World. But more than likely at one of the Disneyana conventions. Tomart had previously put out a 3-volume set of black and white books that showed Disney collectibles and values for just about everything you can think of. I was fascinated by those books. I was able to get a set that my mom bought for me when we were on vacation at one point. Those are the books I wanted. They did not survive the fire very well. They have a lot of pages that got stuck together and stuff from the water damage. But they're still slightly enjoyable. But at some point, they started coming out with these magazines as updates to those books. And if you're familiar at all with Tomart, or they did lots of different magazines and books about collectibles, right? They had an action figure magazine for quite a few years. They had this magazine for quite a few years. I know I've seen books on Hot Wheels cars and Matchbox cars and Disney pins. Happy Meal toys, restaurant toys, um, just lots of different things like that. They were uh, kind of one of the go-to companies for magazines and books of that type, and they would provide values and stuff as well. So you kind of had a guide to go by what your stuff might be worth. But this was number one. It was published in 1994, and I bought every time I found these. I bought them whenever I could find them. It was published sporadically. I don't know if it ever had a real publishing schedule. I would find them. Um, at one point, I found a comic shop here in Florida that carried them. I got a lot of them that way. And then at some point towards the end of the run, they would show up less and less. The quality of the articles got less. Um, and it tried to be a more slicker publication. It kind of just became more of an advertisement for the Disney company instead of concentrating on old collectibles. It was have articles about whatever was coming out at the time, which are good too, of course, but seemed to be more of a focus on that. And then eventually they just kind of disappeared. I didn't know what happened to them. I found out uh, a few years after they ceased publication that the man behind the company, Tom Thumbush, had passed away, and basically everything just ceased to publication. So that was a sad blow for me because I really enjoyed these a lot. I have almost every issue. I think I'm only missing like 3 or 4 issues of the later ones. But we're going to go through this page by page so you can see what it is. And it's not really comic book related. We'll get into some comic books in a bit. But on the cover is this wonderful sculpture for the band concert, right? Just amazing work. And it's got a table of contents, picture of the next issue, which I have. And, got a little introduction, some advertisements, letters to Tom, people writing in, asking questions about various Disneyana items. And then they always had a section that featured animation cells, animation artwork that had been recently auctioned off. So it would give the prices of what they went for and show some of the examples. And then they also had a recurring feature about the Walt Disney's Classics collection, which was a series of fine sculptures, basically, that came out about the same time that Disney started doing the Disneyana conventions. So maybe a year or two before this was published. And it would track values on those. And these were hot collectibles within the Disney collectible area. This line, it still is very collectible. But and it was created by Disney itself. So it was just top notch, all out top notch. And eventually Disney licensed it out to somebody else, and the quality went down, and it was no longer as interesting to collectors as it once had been. But it shows the different values and stuff. I've shown a few of these sculptures on the show in the past. Maybe I'll show some more in the future. I don't have a whole lot of them, but I have a few. And then the thing that really caught my eye in this first issue was this article here about Mickey's Workshop, where it talked about the merchandise from Tokyo Disneyland. And to this day, people still talk about the merchandise that comes out of Tokyo Disneyland. It's very often unique, has much more artistry to it than just the theme park souvenirs that they create for the United States. And so this is like here, this is a working lamp, right? Bronze and glass lamp, limited edition of 300 pieces, just beautiful work. Uh, and a whole bunch of stuff. This entire line was just. I think the thought behind it was if the characters had created a workshop where they could make the kind of things they liked or something like that. I forget what the fanciful story behind it was, um, but you can see some of the things here. This beautiful tapestry based on an old Mickey cartoon. This one where he's shuffling cards. That's actually a thermometer. It says. Um, so very fanciful stuff. A pocket watch. Just some artist pieces of sculptures. There's bookends down here for Mickey's trailer are just wonderful. Um, Clock, mantle clock. Even though the clock's just this little thing here, it's not the big dome. Mickey in a bottle as Gulliver from Gulliver's Travels, basically. Just wonderful, wonderful stuff, in this collection, and very cool. And then there was a article about sculptures from Vernon Kilns. Vernon was a company in California that produced um, Disney items, I believe in the 1940s, 1940, 1942, somewhere in there. But these are all like items based on the Fantasia movie, right? So you have the centaurs and centaurettes and the hippos and the ostriches and so on and so forth. Very collectible, hundreds of dollars, for each piece, basically, if you can find them. And because they're in California, well, there's earthquakes, right? So not everything survives. Uh, and some Dumbo pieces. This is actually a character called Baby Weems. These two guys here from Fantasia, the little mushroom guys from that segment. These are salt and pepper shakers. Very cool. And of course, they had articles for different shops and things around the country, or not articles, ads. I'm sorry. This page is just a continuation of the animation art auctions recap. This is an article about the Euro Disney merchandise when they first opened Euro Disney, as it was called back then. So it was pinback buttons and pins and shirts and things. And then this is actually an ad. As cool as this is with all these different things and all these listings and stuff, this is an ad for a shop. That's what they're advertising. That's what they're selling it for. So, but still very cool because it's basically just another article, except this stuff you could actually buy. First issue of Disneyland News, reprinting the front page where you can actually read it. And then there's an article of Disneyland souvenirs from 1955 to 1959. So early Disneyland souvenirs when they first opened, a lot of print items, including the Disneyland News and books and things. And giveaway items, postcards, ashtrays, just whatever souvenirs they had at the time, playing cards and things. And then and all of these have price guides, right? They all have price guides. Of course, that was 21 years ago, so who knows what they are now. But and that's something that went away in later issues too. They didn't have as many price listings anymore. And I can only imagine the effort that would go into making a magazine like this. It'd take me a year or more to put out just one issue of something like this. And then there's a article about vintage Disneyana and unique celluloid toys. Some publishing, an article about a Disney Store credit card exclusive where you can get this Snow White bracelet or a watch. And of course, VHS was a thing back then, so they had articles about what was coming out on home video. a little bit about buttons and pins. Uh, Pin collecting didn't take off till 2000, so this was about 8, 9 years before that. Of course, there's always been pin collectors, and of course, these were the ones that were made back in the 30s. Uh, the old pinback buttons. Um, some little filler articles about a sculpture, some Disney toys that were coming out. Uh, and then there's a article here about the uh, Pride Lines is a Disney licensee. They made like banks, trains, diecast things, things like that. So these cars are actually banks, right? It's cool stuff. And then again, the animation art price guide is continued. Not sure why they just didn't put them all together, but and then the Disneyland souvenirs guide is continued. And again, I'm not sure why they wouldn't have put the articles all in one place, but that's not how they did it. So you got examples of the first like shopping bags that were themed. Uh, just cool, just fun stuff to look through and enjoy. Uh, and this is more Disneyland souvenir price guide here. Article on watches. Got a couple watches around somewhere. They're not. I think the collectability of those has faded quite a bit over the years. But they've had some unique watches. They got Dopey's face here. That's pretty cool. You got Snow White in a heart. I know there's a goofy one where the hands are backwards. It runs backwards or something. And then they have an ongoing series of articles about Disney merchandise, the history of Disney merchandise, which also basically gives you a history of the Disney company as they go, because they merchandised everything, right, eventually. But it starts off with Oswald. Um, so a few items that uh, were licensed when Disney still owned Oswald, and goes into Mickey Mouse a little bit. For some reason, they didn't mention Alice, but I guess maybe there wasn't any Alice merchandise. And I don't mean like the later Alice in Wonderland. There was the Alice comedies in the 1920s, right? Oh, it does mention them here in the article itself. Uh, yeah, I'm guessing there just wasn't any other than movie posters. There probably, and that's not really merchandise. That's just what they used, right? So, and then it talks about a few different places where you can do mail order, stuff like that. You've got a thing about the Aladdin Happy Meals. And of course, like I said, they had books about Happy Meals toys, so that's something they would have followed um, in those type of things. And then this is a series of postcards from the Disney Gallery. It shows the original concept art for Toontown and things and some other stuff in California. Got a list of upcoming events. So very much similar to uh, like a comic magazine or something, where you can, of course, now everything's on the internet, but back then this was the thing. And they even sold merchandise. This is the Perils of Mickey merchandise, which I've showed uh, the few examples I have of this merchandise, where I had like bendy figures. And these are not those. These are little plastic Applause figures made by Applause. In fact, I believe all of this merchandise is Applause, because they did cups and mugs and pencil toppers and things like this and keychains, and they still do. This is the kind of stuff you can find in basically the gift shops that are surrounding Disneyland or Walt Disney World, right? So they apparently made some sort of deal where they would sell the merchandise, which I found out later because I had this merchandise available to me a few different times when I was buying for the arcades that I would work for. But generally speaking, I couldn't get it at a low enough price point, um, because they were selling to gift shops to, resell at a premium profit, and as a prize, I needed to be at quite a bit a lower price point than what I could get most of the time. Sometimes I would get closeout items at a good price. Uh, and then there was an article about the Mickey's Marathon, right? This is an article about the very first one held in 1994 at Walt Disney World. Shows a little bit of merchandise for it. Of course, it blew up and became a huge thing where they do several a year with collectibles and stuff being manufactured for them. The medals that the participants get are very collectible. I don't know if they did that back then at the first one, but they did do some pins and things, T-shirts and stuff like that. And then they had classified ads too, where you could advertise your stuff if you wanted to. And that's pretty much it. The rest is just ads. But fun magazine to look through. I pulled them out. It's pretty rough shape because I used to go through these constantly. I put them in protection a few times, but I always end up just taking them back out, and they're just fun to look through, especially when you have a whole bunch of them, which I do. All right, so I'm gonna take a minute here to go to repairing the Twilight Zone. No, that's a different show. 1964, number 7. This is, and it's missing the back cover. It's one of those where the back cover was the same as the front, and the kids would rip them off because that's what they were designed for. They were supposed to be a pinup you could put on your wall. And so every once in a while you find one where the cover has been torn off. Oh no! But as you know, if you've been watching, I've been doing my own covers if I can find them on the internet and just kind of putting them in there with them. And I tried that with my slick paper, and this one came out terrible, right? It's a mess. I turned it over, I'm like, oh, what the hell? What the heck happened? And I realized that the piece of paper that I had used was the ad paper in the pack, like the end piece. It's not even shiny paper. It was not what was supposed to be used at all. So I did it again. Came out a little bit better. It does have some streaks going in it, so my black might be getting low. But I can live with that. So I'm reprinting it yet again, and then we have the back page as well. So all I got to do is cut this thing out. I'll have a back page to go along with my damaged issue. And as you guys know, I just do this for my comics. I don't try to do this and then pass it off as a comic that I sell on the shows or anything like that. I'm a completist, and even if it's just an ad missing, I will still print it out and add it when I can. So just gonna line these up and cut. And I'm doing it on the wrong end. Dang it. I did it wrong. I purposely made this side smaller because I knew that they had cropped it. I don't think I saved it so I can print it out again either. Oh well. I'll have to live with it. Can't believe I did that. I was so careful. I was so proud of myself of realizing that, because in the past I haven't done it right. It's still pretty close though. It's good enough for this. It's not like it's a perfect copy anyway, right? So, but now it is readable, and this is actually a little bit better paper. So now I have the inside page, which was missing. And I have a reasonable facsimile of what the back would look like. And you still have the little flap here from the old page where it was ripped off. So not bad. And while we have it here, let's take a look at the comic. Got Rod Serling's picture up there in the corner. And inside front cover, you have Roads and Vehicles number 25, Classic Roman Vehicles. And then you got Twilight Zone, The Shield of Medusa. This is number 7 from 1964. And of course, they didn't do credits on these, so I have no idea who did the art without trying to look it up. And a lot of times when you try to look it up, they don't have anything, information anyway. So, one-page text article about human radio receivers. And then The Menace from Out There, which is not listed as a Twilight Zone story, right? There's no Twilight Zone logo. There's no Rod Serling. There's actually some kind of copyright notice in there that I think says Western Publishing. So yeah, they snuck in some of their own material. Because the Twilight Zone material would have been, I believe, copyrighted by that company, right? They actually did. I've seen that in some other issues of their comics as well. Even in Disney and I believe in Disney and Looney Tunes ones, I believe they would occasionally try to get away with that. Twilight Zone, The Man Who Haunted Himself. All right. Kind of creepy. And then, like I said, you have the Seagoing Vessels, number 13. So I guess they published these inside their comics, and that was their educational feature probably that they needed or something. Called Keys of Knowledge. So I don't know if it's Keys of Knowledge number 13. One in the front was Keys of Knowledge number 25. So I was thinking when I saw at the front, I thought it was Roads and Vehicles number 25. But I'm guessing it's Keys of Knowledge number 25, with this being number 13. And then you got the back cover, the newly printed old back cover. So, cool. And before we get too boring, we'll move on to a comic book review of The Spirit from Kitchen Sink. This is number 14. I cannot recommend this series enough. Now, granted, some of the stories don't I wouldn't say they're hard for me to understand, but they read a little differently, right? They're sometimes I got to slog through the reading a little bit because they were published back in the 1940s, right? Times have changed, and plus they're printed kind of small. To think that this used to be a quarter of an old 1940s newspaper page, it would have been much larger, almost almost double the size of this in width and length. Um, so occasionally I have trouble uh, reading the smaller print where I'm reading. I don't have any problem in here because I have this shiny light right here, but where I normally read them, sometimes I have to strain a little bit. Each issue has a fascinating article about Will Eisner, some aspect of what he did or what he does or himself. Very interesting stuff. And uh, if you want to draw, if you want to write, I highly recommend getting stuff by Will Eisner. It's if you wanted to break it down and study what he did, the body of work that he produced is like taking a master's class in writing and illustration and storytelling. Uh, I mean, just look at the art, right? These are from 1947 newspapers. And if you're not familiar with this original spirit sections, and you probably are if you're watching this, but just in case, um, they would print these 4 to a newspaper page. And keep in mind, newspapers were much larger back then. And then you would take those pages and you would fold them up a certain way, and you would have a comic book. And that's why these weren't comic strips; they were a comic book in your newspaper. And I mean, just look at the art on these pages; they're fantastic. Um, and each issue of this series prints like 4 stories. And you know, the stories run from comedy to drama to crime to detectives to spies to it's all very you don't know what you're going to get from story to story. So it's even though it's all the spirit, it's all very original, much variety. Will Eisner was a master at what he did, the inventor of a lot of techniques, um, or very least perfected them. I mean, I honestly don't know a whole lot about him. I just know his art is incredible, and I can't recommend it enough. So, occasionally I have one of these in my sales. Um, if I don't have it, it's one of those that I will not be selling, but I do have them and sell the doubles. So that's one of the few series where I would automatically keep it without even considering putting it in the sale if I didn't already have it. So, and then, and this takes some reading, right? It takes some reading. They're thought-producing stories. There's quite a bit of text. It's not like a modern comic. You have to think about what you're reading. So after a few issues of that, I'll usually just grab a Disney book, whatever I have laying there in my reading pile. This one happens to be Beagle Boys, number 28 from 1976. And it was a very silly issue, as the Beagle Boys comics tend to be. At least the ones, their series, right? I mean, when Karl Barks invented them and used them, they were fine. And Don Rosa use of them is fine. But when these stories were very childish, very much written for children, very silly, but they're a great change of pace from the spirit, just to kind of change pace and until you get back to the spirit again. And there were actually some clever gags in this one. They have a cousin who stays with them who turns them in for being criminals. He actually arrests them, to turn them in himself. And there's a one at the beginning where they have a uh, cousin or brother or somebody who's a con man, and they've decided to try and con Uncle Scrooge, and they seem to be getting away with it until the end. So good stuff, interesting stuff. Um, Recommend this one highly. If you're a Disney fan, these are fun, but nothing that you're gonna, write home about and say, "Ooh, yeah, I want to make stories like that." So, and that about does it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate it. Hope your Friday is a fun day. Tomorrow, I should have, if everything goes well, I should have a auction starting at 12:45 Eastern Time, and also on Sunday at noon Eastern Time. $3 starts, free shipping. You guys know the deal. And thanks for being here. I appreciate it. If you could, go ahead and hit that like button for me. And I will see you soon.
Step right up, don't be shy. Join the fun, give him a try. Click that button, it's not slide. We can take this song so high. Oh, let's all click the like button. Don't just sit there doing nothing. Subscribe and be a little loving. Make our hearts keep on thumping. Do up D, it's so neat. Hit that like, feel the beat. Join the rhythm, move your feet. Subscribe and make it sweet. Oh, let's all click the like button. Don't just sit there doing nothing. Subscribe and be a little loving. Make our hearts keep on thumping. We'll be grooving night and day. With your clicks we never sway. Share the joy, sway and play. Subscribe to ride on this way. Oh, let's all click the like button. Don't just sit there doing nothing. Subscribe and be a little loving. Make our hearts keep on